We covered earlier in the week, Trump talking about, you know what it is. I'm not
cognitively.
Talking about his cognitive situation. And I saw an op-ed that kind of sparked some anger in me. And so I'll remind you of that clip in a second. But it was from Mediaite Tommy Christopher, op-ed, disgraceful media blacks out stunning Trump cognitive IQ test rant, hides damning facts behind it. And it made me realize, oh my gosh, that's so true. I covered it, obviously. Others in independent media did. But then it reminded me that this is barely a story. I didn't see mainstream media really emphasizing it. And I get it. It's very difficult to drink out of a fire hose. That's what we're all doing right now. Every day you wake up, it's and you're trying to figure out how do you process all this information and put the necessary amount of alarm with it without coming off like an alarmist or like everything you're outraged about. But there's enough now where you could be outraged 24/7. So here's some of the piece, and I'll show you the clip. The cable news media has disgracefully blacked out President Donald Trump's stunning rant about his latest cognitive test, which he now falsely equates with an IQ test in a failure that illustrates the state of journalism in Trump's second term. I saw a tweet that said, Trump bragging about a cognitive test, calling it an IQ test, is in and of itself a failure of the cognitive test. That's failing the test. If you go around going, I failed the test, it's supposed to make sure you're not severely damaged. Trump spoke to reporters aboard Air Force One en route to Japan on Monday, during which he went on the rant that we'll look at. And it quotes it, talks about how there was a lot packed into this rant. Him playing coy with a third term, him saying Jasmine Crockett and AOC should take an IQ test, because he did when he didn't. But the most stunning part of this rant is that Trump claims and appears to sincerely believe that this assessment is an aptitude test, what he says a lot, that measures something akin to an intelligence quotient, or IQ. The facts surrounding this exam have been known for years. It goes through some of the background, person, woman, man, camera, TV. The test is called the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, which Trump first took as president in 2018, according to Ronnie Jackson. At a now infamous press conference, Jackson told reporters that Trump had scored 30 over 30 on the MOCA, and that the test was not clinically indicated, but Trump insisted on taking it. The test is used to screen for mild cognitive issues and consists of 8 sections with a total of 12 tasks, successful completion of which are awarded points. Those tasks consist of things like, and then it goes through the list of things, connecting letter to number dots in order, drawing a cube, recalling the 5 words from earlier in the test, knowing where you are, what date and time, object similarities, etc. And there are several versions of the assessment, none of which has a number 25, which he kept saying. But the question that correlates roughly to the section Trump identifies as really tough consists of being able to tell the examiner the current date, month, year, place, and city. Bragging about acing this test is like passing a field sobriety test and telling everyone you aced a physical fitness test. But the only mention you'll hear from cable news about it was Crockett bringing it up in an interview. Where's Daniel Dale? Where's Jake Tapper? The piece writes. Why is anybody to point out? Where is anybody to point out that Trump thinks it takes a mental Superman to repeat back the sentence, the child walked his dog in the park after midnight? A conspiratorial-minded person might connect the dots between this failure and things like NBC parent company Comcast donating to Trump's ballroom fund, or CNN CEO reportedly telling staff to ease up on reporting on it, to name a few recent examples. They need to grow a spine and cover this like they would cover it if it were a different president. And I don't have to name an example. And I won't. But there's one that I'm sure they would have given a little bit more. Really tough test, IQ test. Imagine if I just bust out my Modi right now. Oh, my almost did it. Okay. Very tough test, very tough IQ test. You take test. Pretty easy at the beginning. It's pretty easy. Kind of like getting a beautiful woman for me, Joe. No, kid. Jill's my only woman. But it gets a little more difficult. Question 25. Not just zebras and giraffes. A little more complicated. I think that would get more coverage. But a big part of it is because when there's 100 scandals, is him again proving cognitive concerns by bragging about a cognitive test? Is that one of them? Maybe not. So I actually sympathize. But here's the aforementioned clip.
Sir, Steve Bannon said in a recent interview,
click the subscribe button. I'm just going to say it that way.
there could be plans for you to be able to run and potentially win if you're in term in 2028. Is that something you'd be willing to challenge the court to be?
Well, I haven't really thought about it. We have some very good people, as you know. But I have the best poll numbers I've ever had. I mean, I just solved 8 wars and a 9th is coming. I believe Russia, Ukraine will happen. But we just did, we just left, and when you look at the treaty we just did, that was a war that was thousands of people were already shot at the border. And when you look at what we just did, it was pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. We got a lot of good credit, and I really have to thank Malaysia for that, because they really, the Prime Minister and everybody really helped get the 2 countries together. But it was quite a great peace treaty. But that was one of 8, and makes me feel good. I mean, it's millions of people that we saved. I saved the lives of millions of people. That's what's important. Yeah.
Who are the very good people?
They are good people.
You said that for 2028, they're very good people.
Well, we have great.
That's such a jump scare. Sorry, we haven't even gotten to the cognitive part. They put a lot of context in this, but imagine you're a reporter and you go, oh, what are the good people? And then he can't hear you and he just lunges forward at you. And there's always reports about the aroma. So it's probably like, oh, hey, whoa, don't get me orange, bruh.
Well, I don't have to get into that, but we have one of them standing right here. We have JD, obviously. The vice president is great. I think Marco's great. I think, I'm not sure if anybody would run against us. I think if they ever formed a group, it would be unstoppable. I really do. I believe that. I would love to do it. I have my best numbers ever. It's very terrible. I have my best numbers. If you read it, am I not ruling it out? I mean, you'll have to tell me. All I can tell you is that we have a great group of people, which they don't. They have Jasmine Crockett, a low IQ person. They have AOC's low IQ. You give her an IQ test, have her pass like the exams that I decided to take when I was at Walter Reed. That was a very hard, they're really aptitude tests, I guess, in a certain way, but they're cognitive tests. Let AOC go against Trump. Let Jasmine go against Trump. I don't think Jasmine, the first couple of questions are easy. A tiger, an elephant, a giraffe, When you get up to about 5 or 6, and then when you get up to 10 and 20 and 25, they couldn't come close to answering any of those questions.
It feels a little redundant, doesn't it? But then I really sit with what he's saying after what I just read to you. And it's weird that's not a bigger story. It was the first time he did this, but it gets so normalized. Making up questions he didn't answer, calling something it's supposed to scream for like dementia, an aptitude test, an IQ test. Like he thinks he got the maximum score on an IQ test. Do you know what I mean? He really believes that. He lies a lot. I know. I think he actually believes this, which is scarier. And he thinks that Jasmine Crockett and AOC couldn't pass a basic, hey, is there a real issue in the brain sort of test?
A brain.
It's very concerning. And the fact that we're in such, I don't know if it's an indictment of the media or an indictment of our times or how much of a fire hose of drama and scandals he is, that it's just not going to be significant. But again, that headline, I think, really woke me up for a second. I do invite you to stick around because we have so much in this segment to go over. This is kind of our miscellaneous one. So let's just run the gambit of stories. Tucker, terrible as ever, but he actually is criticizing Trump correctly here.
Like if you're looking at the drug trade in the United States, how much of that comes from Venezuela? Well, we have a fentanyl crisis famously. Does fentanyl come from Venezuela? No, it doesn't. It actually comes from Mexico. Huh. What about meth? Well, meth also comes from Mexico. What about cocaine? That would be Peru, Bolivia, and Colombia. Not to say that drugs don't come from Venezuela. Of course they do. But most drugs that wind up in this country do not come from Venezuela. They're not produced there. They're not trafficked through there. And the cartels that distribute them and kill people in our country are not Venezuelan.
Yes, that's when we fact checked before when they say the justification for their extrajudicial killings of people in boats with very limited information, none actually, except for a video that they provide to the public and to Congress too. They're not being transparent with Congress. Pretty brazen unconstitutional behavior. Well, we have to because this is the source of our drug problem. But that's not substantiated in the data. And as I didn't hear him reference, but as I keep bringing up, the reallocation of resources to the immigration operation has taken away from cracking down more substantively and more systemically on drug trafficking conspiracies. And so the whole world's backwards and we're doing these killings, but not actually addressing the more systemic problem and not honest about where the problem comes from. Then another miscellaneous item. Now Mike Waltz, after Signalgate, became the U.S. ambassador because that whole whatever he was before, national security advisor, went very poorly. And he was speaking in front of the UN and was talking about Cuba. And then it kind of goes out of control.
Describing itself as, quote, the enemy of the
Y'all are not ready for where this is about to go. Just get ready.
United States. It's located just 90 miles off our shore. It conspires and it collaborates with enemies and adversaries of the United States against our interests. The facts are that this regime supports terrorist organizations around the globe. It is allowing mercenaries to fight in the war in Ukraine. It's propping up the Venezuelan regime, and it aids cartels. The facts are that these cartels that it props up are...
Okay, so someone interrupts and says Cuba wants to respond. So a representative from Cuba says this.
Recinto. Señor Walls, esta es la Asamblea General de Naciones Unidas. No es un grupo de Signal ni es la...
So then he says he's getting upset with Waltz for like unprofessional behavior and what he's saying about Cuba, and says this is the United Nations General Assembly. This is not a signal chat, nor the House of Representatives. And I've said this before, but you know what my reaction is? So I'm sure you've had this experience before, but imagine that you're with friends and you're having a beef with your brother and he's been so rude. You know, I've never had this. My brother's great, but just to illustrate the point, I can't believe he did that. And then later your friend is like, dude, your brother's a dick. And you're like, hey, wait, I can say that. I can be upset with him. You can't. That's my family. I have a little bit of that feeling where like Mike Waltz is a disaster, the signal chat, but it's sort of, hey, shut up. This is our problem. For him, for the representative from Cuba to be like, hey, this is the United Nations, not a signal chat, mic drop. That's our business. We can... Did you get that from me? Did you hear me say that? Don't you be talking about the signal chat. That's in our home. I do feel that way. Truly. Really and truly. Billie Eilish weighing in. I put this in the show for our younger viewers. We appeal to all audiences. Billie is a big pop star, and she's weighing in on Yes on 50, Prop 50, which we fundraised for, redistricting in California to combat some of the Republican redistricting.
Hi, I'm Billie Eilish, and I am
We know.
asking for your help. If you live in California, like me, please vote yes on Prop 50 on or before November 4th. It is so unbelievably important, and if you need any help voting, you can go to vote.ca.gov. It's so important. Vote yes on Prop 50. Thank you.
Good. Now, all I'll say is, Billie Eilish is famous, but I think they... No, I'm not going to say that. They did... No. Never mind. Gavin Newsom, this is his initiative. Like I said, redistricting to undo the Texas redistricting or balance it out. He was doing an interview with ABC that was a big interview. And this is brutal. Jonathan Karl brings up that apparently a lot of people think that Gavin Newsom gives them Patrick Bateman vibes from American Psycho. American Psycho, who's a serial killer. And it's funny to hear an ABC reporter, not me, I would say that to a politician, but like Jonathan Karl say, you know, a lot of your friends told me they think you're a serial killer. Gosh, Jonathan.
Do you think you would be a good president?
Oh God, I don't even know how to begin to answer that. It's that one truly. I have no idea.
What do you think would be the hardest thing?
It's a question I don't think anyone could answer. I mean, it's an extraordinary responsibility. It's not an achievement, it's a responsibility. Difference between Obama, Biden, Trump, that distinction right there.
Is there any part of you that thinks you couldn't do that?
Oh my God, I think any human being, if you don't have anxiety or insecurity about your capacity in any realm or role, I think you're not being honest with yourself. I think there's humility and grace in everything. I think about that in the context of being a good parent, of being a better governor every single day, of just being a better friend and a better person. Always trying to just learn more, absorb more, try to be more.
What do you make of all the Patrick Bateman talk?
I don't know, but
I mean, people say that you are like American
serious?
Psycho. Yeah.
Jesus, yeah. Like I said, new scum. I mean, look.
But even your friends like say this.
Oh, do they?
I mean, yeah.
I'm going to reevaluate my guest list.
I mean, there was a comedian that said a literal comic book villain from Central Casting, Patrick Bateman vibes. He definitely had someone killed or may have killed someone himself. I think he meant that in a.
I'm glad I still have some humor left. I mean, this is a rough business.
Yeah, it is.
This is a rough, particularly if you're willing to fight. And I just.
You just gotta love it. You do.
Interesting.
It's just interesting. Say what you will. Say what you will. There's something I find really likable about this. There's something, because I don't think a serial killer would have. It's just interesting. That's all I'm saying. No, that's so funny. Hey, they said that you have people tied up in your basement. No, I don't. But I feel like that's kind of a weird question to ask him. Now, he gets that feedback a lot just because he has the type of look that you would cast as a politician. Very politician-y look. But I don't know. In interviews and stuff, he comes off a lot more authentic than just if you saw a photo of him. And some of his history has played into that stereotype. I haven't heard people say, I think he's murdered people. We're just lobbing that around. I lob that around constantly to other people, but I've never heard that about Newsom. Patrick Bateman, I just watched American Psycho recently for the first time. Disturbing. So now I'm just picturing, go with me, Newsom running in just shoes with a chainsaw and throwing it at somebody, which is what happens. Spoiler alert. Patrick's not a good guy in that movie. Oof.
This is a rough business.
Yeah, it is.
This is a rough, particularly if you're willing to fight. And I just hope we have more fighters. And I want to say this seriously. I have no problem being.
Oh, it's so good. He's hitting all of them. It is. I don't want him to stop with the hand motions before he starts running, which he's obviously running for president. But I want him to not make it so clear that he does them when he gets nervous about a question. Because he'll sit still and then a question that he's a little uncomfortable with will come up and he'll go through all of them. And you just don't want to have a tell. But otherwise, use them. Don't have a tell. Look at this series.
If you're willing to fight. And I just hope we have more fighters. And I want to say this seriously. I have no problem being, out there with the arrows in my back, as long as it gives some space for people to run over me and move forwards.
Okay, and then the last questions, these are the lightning round that everybody will
good.
get. I'll give them both at once, and you can answer them simultaneously.
All right, what do you got?
What is the biggest misconception about you, and what is the fairest criticism of Gavin Newsom?
Fairest criticism. I don't know about the misconception. I think some of this, some of the Bateman, the looks, the whole thing, right? The hair, all that.
It's just like people come up to me, they're like, you're so hot, you're so sexy. And I'm like, could you just I'm a person. I'm a human being. I'm not just great hair and a great face and big hands. That doesn't define me. It's more than that. Good teeth. Good jawline. You could tell. I understand that too. He's trying to say the biggest misconception is people, because of my appearance and maybe some of my history as a politician, makes people think I'm not an authentic guy who can relate on an authentic level. But as he's saying that point, it is weird to talk about your own looks. People think because I'm a handsome, tall guy, like he can't say that. So he just goes, like the stuff, the hair and the stuff.
The whole thing, right? The hair, all that, And so I think people then see that, believe certain things. It sort of connects.
They believe that you're a lightweight. Is that what you're saying? They think you're just...
They think you're just a little more style.
Yeah.
Versus the substance. And I put the substance in terms of the policy making up against it. I mean that, and that's not braggadocious. I really believe that.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of the work, the policy work we've done.
We're in such a wacky business. We've watched so much of Trump, and it's weird to dislike someone so much in Trump, but know so much about them. I've looked at him much longer than I've probably looked at most of my friends. Think about that. On screens, I've probably spent, in preparation for the show and on the show, looking at his face longer than I've looked at some of my friends' faces. The contours of his face, the details. Is it a good makeup day? Is it a bad makeup day? How's the hair that day? Like all those details I can lock in on in a way that is disturbing. And that one tickled me. And it's just like you're just doing a little juggle. I like it. Because it's almost speaking in a dance. And same thing with this. With Newsom, I am now becoming so familiar with his speaking style that I get so distracted by it that I almost forget what I'm saying. Like right now. And the same thing with Kamala Harris. And I feel like it actually makes it more difficult for me to analyze politics because it becomes so niche. Like if you're millions of people every month come across for the first time the show, right? Or thousands at least, and are watching a segment for the first time, which is a thought that trips me out. For the first time they're watching the show, and they haven't yet picked up on all of the little quirks of all the people we talk about. And so it probably feels way too hyper niche. But something about that helps me get through all this. I saw that Libs of TikTok, this right-wing account, responded to Gavin saying, yes, Gavin, I've read the Bible. Adultery is a sin. Did you read that part? Because Newsom did, admittedly, have a scandal back when he was mayor, admitting he had an affair with his aide's wife. Gavi, oh, baba. But what the funny thing is, Libs of TikTok, really pro-Trump. We're doing this? So we're doing this, are we? You're going to point out that Gavin Newsom cheated? You have CEO of cheating. He's had so many relationships. He couldn't tell if his abuse accuser was his abuse accuser or his wife in a photo. He thought his abuse accuser was his ex-wife when he saw a photo of her. Or vice versa. So, I don't know if that's the best line of reasoning there. Me, I could call it out. And I did, just there. Bad, Gavin, bad. Long time ago. But bad. And that plays into the vibe that I think will hurt Gavin if he runs for president, when he runs for president. Which is feeling like you have a politician stank. That you're kind of a politician's politician, made in a lab. And stories like that, where you're the mayor and your staffer has a wife and you're cheating with the staffer's wife and you're in a relationship, is this whole thing. And I gotta be honest, I've loved Gavin's communications. I should call him Newsom. I don't know why I'm getting on a first name basis. Gav's communications, his meeting of the moment, messaging wise, against Trump has really been great. And that'll make you more fond of somebody. But I don't know if I can get over. I just don't. And I hate to say this, I don't know if I can get over that he was in a relationship with Kimberly Guilfoyle. Which he was. You probably forgot. He was. I'm supposed to look past that? That he had, I think, a marriage with the same person who was engaged to Don Jr. There's something that's too... I feel like you now have some weird bond with Don Jr., and that makes me uncomfortable. I think there's probably a word for that. I don't remember that. And I'm kidding, obviously. I'm kidding about that, but that is a weird thought. Newsom was with Kimberly? And then she gets out of that and is like, hey, let me find someone similarly impressive. Don Jr.? Say what you will about Gavin Newsom, but at least his chest is a normal human chest. Say what you will about Gavin Newsom, but at least he doesn't look high every time he talks and doesn't stick his cocaine finger in his mouth every 2 seconds to adjust his zen. Okay, and while we're talking about Gavin Newsom, recently got asked if he would run for president. He said, I can't say I will, but I can't say that I'm not going to. And I appreciated he went, I'd be lying if I said I'm not considering it, which means yes. And I the whole game they play where they're like, wait, what? President? President of where? Me? Oh, that's so cool. You think? I never thought of it. Bothers me a lot. So I appreciated that he went, yeah, I'm considering it hard, for sure. Well, another person who's considering, which seems, if Trump tries to run for a third term and Kamala runs in 2028, I'm retiring. That's going to be wild. Bizarro world. But Kamala Harris is obviously definitely planning. And one thing she's going to have to contend with if she does is that she was Biden's vice president. And while I probably have a much more positive view of Biden's presidency than the average American because of how much we covered a lot of the positive things that were happening, everyone gets that now there is a political baggage that comes with Biden. For some reasons that are totally unfair, some that are fair. And just the ending kind of really spoiled a lot of it, unfortunately. And I gotta be honest, this is all from a place of love. Obviously, Kamala Harris won the nomination. Then she was running against whoever, Vance. It would be really important that she won over Vance. But this question is one she's gonna get. And the answer she gives, with love, was bad. Okay.
Wasn't Joe Biden then, to put it on him, wasn't his refusal to recognize his own frailties the reason that you faced a nearly impossible task?
I ran against Donald Trump for president, and Donald Trump ran on a platform that was in large part, I believe, misrepresenting his intentions to the American people.
True.
I do believe that there are a fair number of people that voted for Donald Trump who believed him when he told them that his first priority on day one is going to be to bring down prices. And he didn't. And you combine that misrepresentation of intention with also what was at play in terms of massive amounts of mis and disinformation.
Now, forgive me.
And a truncated calendar in terms of the clock.
I want to interrupt you.
So the interview interrupts, and I've seen past it. She did an interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene. We covered it where like Marjorie Taylor Greene ends up ripping off her mic, so upset. So she presses, and I appreciate that. But everything Harris said there was true. Trump lied to his voters. She had a really difficult short campaign she had to run. It's difficult to go up against a campaign that has no attachment to truth. All those things are true. Let's be honest, though. Wasn't answering the question. Like, the question was about Biden. And I'm uncomfortable seeing a lot of Democrats really get uncomfortable when they're asked about Biden. You're going to get asked. And it's a difficult question to answer because you know the good things that he was doing. You know, in some cases, very historic good things he was doing. You were serving. You were a part of it. And you don't like that people have completely rewritten his story to be like, terrible, all terrible. And I get that. That's upsetting. But you also know that selling, hey, let's just go back there. Let's just take us back there is not going to be the energy people want right now. They want to feel like we're going to just launch into a whole new era of change. And balancing that is tough, but you got to prep that answer because you're going to have to give it a lot of times.
Because that is a world-class pivot, but it is not the question that I asked you, which is about Joe Biden's failure to recognize his own frailties and what that did to you. The question is about Joe Biden. Are you still reluctant to criticize the former president?
In what regard, please?
Well, just in terms of that question. So you went on.
What exactly would you like to ask? Be more specific, if you don't mind.
Was it Joe Biden's decision, his failure to recognize his own frailties in that position that put you in the position that made it almost impossible to win that race?
He was not frail as president of the United States.
But he had frailties. We all saw the debate.
I do believe that Joe Biden had the capacity to be president of the United States, and I have never doubted that he had the capacity to be president of the United States. If you want to talk about whether he had the ability to endure what a race for president of the United States would require in that political environment in 2024, as I've said in the book, I had concerns.
I'm just wondering, is there a reason why you won't go to that prolonged frailty question? We saw the debate, we saw the difficulty here.
What is frail? Can you look up frailty? I know the word. I just want to make sure. Maybe is Kamala getting stuck on the word frailty? I feel like that's a fair word, like frail. Isn't that just like old? Frailty is a state of increased vulnerability to adverse health outcomes, characterized by a decline in multiple physiological systems, resulting in decreased resilience and increased risk of disability and mortality. I don't think that's like an offensive word to use necessarily. But again, it's a tragically difficult position to be in because you were the vice president. So, and I was, let me just not mislead, I was there. Like I was there in the trenches. And I stand by it, rooting the heck on the positive things that were happening, especially contrasted against what Trump then just proved that we were right about what he would do. But that doesn't mean, I don't think that means you can't go, yeah, I think that him failing to acknowledge his own weakness, especially as a candidate, put us in a tough spot. Couldn't she say that? Feels pretty easy, I think. And I know that she's trying to be mindful of her respect for Biden, and I appreciate that. Their relationship, also apparently Biden calls her and tells her not to speak out against it. But just for the sake of the Democratic Party, there needs to be this feeling of a revamp. However justified or not you feel it to be. And I think I saw Newsom also getting asked, and he said, hey, Biden was the best president of the century or something like that. And I'm sure he's going to then have to justify that a lot of times. And there's a long laundry list of reasons you can make positive assessments of Biden's presidency. But I just think, if no other reason, the ambition for change in general just crumble down the whole old system. The past characterization of the Democratic Party, and let's start something so much better in its ability to message and in its actual policies. That's what people are feeling. So I don't know if this answer is going to work.
Had marshalling his thoughts.
I have answered that question. I do not believe
I think it's just hard watching the debate to see how there could not be a problem long term with someone who can't marshal their thoughts. I'm not saying his acuity wasn't present.
I talked about that in the book. And I also mentioned the context in which that debate occurred. And you'll probably remember how I talked about that in terms of what his travel schedule had been, that what he had been enduring in terms of the timing of that.
This makes me so uncomfortable. I'm trying to be as transparent because some people, when I say anything nuanced, explode. It's very confusing to me. So I'm trying to give you all the necessary context so you don't misunderstand me and place myself correctly in the story. As Lindy Lee said, what's unique about my story is it's about me. In that I was feeling the Biden fever, the good type. That sounded bad. The good type. And then there was a wake-up call at one point, at a very distinct moment, where it was like, oh, whoa, it's important to be able to communicate, actually, as a president. So, doesn't mean you ignore all the good, but you speak correctly about the bad. That's fine. So, going through, let's not do debate justifications. That's going to be the quickest way to make a presidential campaign get off to a bad start. All right, let's go back to, all right, so here was the deal. He took a lot of flu medicine, and he had sort of like a fish meal. He had a little fish. It was a Filet-O-Fish. He knew Trump was going to have his Filet-O-Fish before, and he's seen that Trump had been like really energetic during debate, so he thought, man, I'll have a Filet-O-Fish. And he had 3 Filet-O-Fishes. And it kind of gave him a stomach issue, and he was just like diarrhea before the debate, just pouring out of him. And it all, I guess, came from these Filet-O-Fishes. Now, they didn't get them from McDonald's. They got them from a place called McSpace-Donald's, and that could have been the cause of it. It was more of a food truck, McSpace-Donald. And so he was having this projectile diarrhea, and it kind of wore him out. And then he also took a few Advils, and he'd been traveling a lot. And so that's kind of what the debate was. That's not going to be good. What you want to do is, hey, listen, a lot of problems. Hey, ready? Okay, Jaden asked me. I want to see if I can do this. Asked me, did Biden's lack of an ability to acknowledge his own weaknesses make it impossible for you to run a successful campaign?
Did Biden's lack of an ability to acknowledge his own weaknesses make it impossible for you to run a campaign?
That's interesting. This is interesting. I haven't thought of that. This is interesting.
Interesting.
I'm giving Newsom a hard time. Here's the deal. I don't want to look in your eyes that long. That'll be weird. Here's the deal. Thank you for asking the question, Jaden. What a time that was, huh? And let me just give you some background as to why this is a sensitive question for me. I have a lot of respect for Biden. I served him as vice president, and I was in the room. And what I saw was someone who's able to govern. But the debate was a wake-up call for all of us. And there were some moments before that I never thought were reason to sound the alarm, but definitely added to a feeling of his presidency thus far is governing the way that I supported. But can he be a candidate again? Could he be president for more years? Is he able to deliver the message about the policy that I support in a way that's effective? And I started having doubts, and I agree with you that the doubts the American people had about that ended up making it really difficult for me, especially given how late he ended up dropping on the ticket, to throw together a campaign. And that's why if I don't know if I will, but if I were to choose to run again, I'm telling people the truth. We all as Americans were shocked. In my case, that my boss, who was doing a heck of a job in some of these domestic policies, reuniting with our allies, eating ice cream, having to come to terms with the fact the American people didn't feel like another 4 years would make sense given his age. That was tough. But I've come to terms with it, and I see the mistakes we made, and we should have made a better decision earlier. And we should have had a primary, and we should have hashed out these issues, but we didn't, and we can't change that. But now, I think we got to talk about what's ahead. I think we got to talk about how we not just undo the damage that Trump is doing to our country, but reverse course so quickly and jolt ourselves forward so powerfully that we're going to feel whiplash. Next question. That's what I think we work with. But even as saying that, I started noticing why she struggled in it, because it's like there's some things you got to walk. Because if you go, yeah, Joe, wow, that was crazy, or you overly degrade him, it's like, well, you were there. You were part of it. And she's going to want to run on some of the successes that she can claim credit over for the Biden-Harris administration if she runs. So you can't just go, meh, and that wouldn't be honest to her experience. But you also can't go, I thought he was just perfect. What? The debate? No. Cold medicine, diarrhea, that whole thing. It was a whole different thing. That had nothing to do with the brain. So it is a tough thing to balance. We're going to keep going. Tina Forte is running for Congress against AOC, and AOC should be scared. I think Tina's done this before and failed miserably. But this time, I'm sure AOC's voters are going to abandon her. Look at this ad. Make AOC bartend again, Tina Forte. And it looks like she cropped herself out on Canva. Herself. Look at that cropping job. That's so janky. What, do you have one staffer making this flyer? All right, so I think AOC might be all right there. Fox News just bankrolled its most first quarter ad revenue ever. So while a lot of cable news is struggling, the most dishonest cable news is thriving. Scary. With how do they do it? It's because of sharp, witty, timely humor like this.
Katie, don't you think a good deal for this reopening the government would include, okay, we will kick a little more money into Obamacare, but it's only to cover Trump derangement syndrome?
That would be something, wouldn't it?
Right? I mean, not for the illegal alien. Yeah, that would be a lot of money, though, Ned, right? That's a lot of...
I don't know if it's curable at this point.
Actually, it's an incurable disease. It's not covered. But it is a pre-existing condition, correct? It's unfortunate.
True.
Katie, Ned, great to see both of you tonight.
Maybe we can get some money for coverage of Trump derangement syndrome, because that's a really bad disease. Oh, this is so good. Then Mike Johnson, having his daily hearing on the government shutdown, and he gets confronted with, why are you cutting off SNAP benefits when, number one, there's an emergency fund you could tap into for it. Number two, Trump kept SNAP funded last time the government shut down. Which, when was the last time the government shut down? Last time Trump was president.
So we'll take a few questions. Is there a second?
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. During the last shutdown in 2019, it was the first Trump administration, and they made sure that in the second month of the shutdown, SNAP benefits would go out. They had them sent early. Why do you think they shouldn't do that this time?
Well, the president, this administration has done exactly what he did in the first term, and that is bend over backwards to make sure that we mitigate the harm. We explained here yesterday that any administration in a shutdown scenario has figuratively a control panel of pain dials. In the Obama administration,
So he says Trump is handling this the same way. Here's a Fox Business headline: Trump to fund food stamps despite government shutdown back in 2019. So no, they're handling it differently. And I had more for you, but this segment has gone on so long. So should we just wrap it up there? Jaden's giving me, he's saying, get this show over. And then he wrote on a sheet of paper, queer. It was weird. I was like, what? Why'd you say that? No, that's the show.